Hey, welcome to the Twin Cities Division.
Welcome to the Twin Cities Division.
Welcome to the Twin Cities Division.
Welcome to the Twin Cities Division. I like mine better. From the historic White 7 Depot, welcome to the Twin Cities Division.
Welcome to the Twin Cities Division.
And good evening, everyone. Good evening, William.
Good evening. How's it going, Tom?
It is going well. And welcome, everyone, to a Wednesday/Friday live stream from the Twin Cities Division. And William is kind enough to join us here with probably some other members of his family. And we're going to do some operations for you live. So remember, if a train falls off the track, breaks, starts on fire, it's part of the script. Okay, it's all. But thanks for coming, William. And we can say hello to everybody out there. Wow, we got quite a crew.
Well, it's a good crew. I mean, in terms of anything falling on the floor, starting on fire, the operators that are in there are very capable of doing just that. So they're professionals. ranging anywhere from 8 years old to, we'll say, 60 plus. We don't want to throw the older guys' age out there because I don't think that's kosher.
I think they're at home watching with their popcorn and oxygen bottles. So that's what I'd be doing. We're going to take care of some business first, and then we'll start saying hello and putting up comments. And we'll talk about some upcoming things. Our first thing is this Saturday, December 9th. Our December meeting is actually our holiday party. It's at Devani's Pizza in Eden Prairie, Flying Cloud, 12 to 5. Dan Dosa has chaired this up. He's got us a private room or rooms. He has prizes and gift certificates for everyone in attendance, where there'll be hot food, cold beverages, get a slice, get a hoagie. And he's also asking if you want to donate to Toys for Tots, he will collect them. New unwrapped toy would be wonderful. And RSVP to our email, or info@tcdnmra.org. We can get a count and know if we need the extra room. So this Saturday, hope to see everybody over there and grab a slice. We also, in February, our operators retreat. Greg Dahl is chairing this and putting on a wonderful event so far. He's enlisted many layouts. If you want to assist Greg, you're a TCD member, let us know. The cost will be a $10 donation for the TCD to continue to do events like this. But that'll be February 24th. We'll start. It'll be a one day only. We won't do the night before. We're going to have meet the hosts breakfast, Perkins, 494 off France Avenue, till 9 a.m. Come early if you wish to enjoy some pancakes. I always do. You'll run the first layout from 9:30 to noon. And we'll take a break for lunch, and then you'll run your second layout from 1 to 3:30. Everyone will get to run at least 2 layouts. We'll find a layout for you. And like I said, the $10 a donation to the Twin Cities Division to further fund programs and events like this. So I hope if you're curious about operations, if you're new to operations, if you want to meet the people that operate and you want to meet the layout owners, you take part in this. This has been a great event. We've run it twice. Everyone's come away with smiles and stuff. Our modelers retreat will be March 16th. We will have displays, clinics, socializing, maybe some manufacturers. We don't know. Joe Binish is chairing this up, one of our best modelers we have in the cities. And he is putting together a stellar program of clinics this year. And we will, that event is always a social event of the year. William, what do you think about that event?
It's honestly one of my favorites. It's one that I attended probably 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Ken just kind of threw it out there and says you should come down and check it out. Told my dad and I to come down. The clinics are great. The overall socializing is fantastic. But I rate it as probably one of my favorite things to do throughout the year. Whether it's encouraging, trying to get some projects done, I usually bring a couple of models with, and then even just some of the materials and weathering and things that I've done in the past few months. So it's neat to be able to at least see firsthand. And that way people can ask directly, how does the taco sauce work? Which one's your favorite? I brought a couple cars that's all I used on it. It's a great product, but it's also a great opportunity to interact and engage with fellow modelers. And to me, that's what it's all about. That's what makes it fun.
Yes. And I encourage everyone to bring a model. There's no exception to mine isn't good enough. Well, have none of that. And mine isn't finished. Those are the ones to bring.
And the gentleman in the photo there, that's Kurt Helverson. And he originally wasn't going to bring anything. I says, you just got to bring something. And then I saw the stuff, blown away. I mean, I didn't know Kurt's an exceptional modeler, but then to see it firsthand and some of the cars and vehicles that he had sitting there, it was just too cool to see. You don't know what to expect. And then guys that say that, I don't really have much to show, they end up bringing it. And it's like, holy smokes, you didn't have much to show. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So anybody, I mean, there's blank space next to Kurt in that photo. So you can definitely fill it up. There's room for everybody.
We will make review. And that Kurt's a prime example of, we all look at our models and I'm not good enough. I got to bring something in. Like you said, it blew me away. The number of new modelers and the number of new things. And even if you don't have a model, we've had people come and display their electronics. We've had people set up DCC programming tracks. You know, we've had live clinics going on out in the modeling room. It's really going to be neat. And I just can't encourage this enough. I always shake my head at people say, I don't have anything to bring. I'm like, yeah, you do.
Well, and it's so interactive. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. And people that I know that one of the gentlemen that had the programming track, he even said, he goes, well, I'll program, just bring an engine. So if you do have an engine you have questions about, you bring it in and just see. I mean, the worst that can happen is that you get the blue smoke of death and you have to replace the decoder. But then that might be a good sign that it might have been wired wrong or something, but you still got an answer. And at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about, is just getting some answers and having fun with it.
Right. It ends all too quickly. I will tell you that. It ends all too quickly. For this is our prime event, started by Ken Zeska and Greg Smith way back. And this shows off some of the greatest, not only in the Twin Cities, but we've attracted people from all different states and countries. So, you know, come see, admire everything, talk to everybody. There's nobody here who has a table like you're looking at Kurt. He'll tell you how he did all that. He would be more than happy to tell you, you know, how to do all that. And, you know, I have a question, how do you do the paint? Somebody will tell you how to paint. Someone will tell you how to clinic. Someone will tell you how to use taco sauce. So, yep, there we go. Friday evening, 6 till 9. Saturday, 8 till 4:30. Get early. Coffee all day. Donuts. Clinics are going, you know, multiple times. And, oh, see, we got Greg here. It's the model's best use of hobby time. It is. It actually is. And like I said, Greg's a prime example of, he brings structures. If you haven't seen some of Greg Gull's downtown deco structures, they're just so realistic. And, you know, it's one of the great events I think we have here in the Twin Cities. So, all right, let's see what else we got cooking here. Oh, the Fremo layouts are up and running. And if somebody's on here, maybe Ken B's on there, we can get some hours. But down in Waconia, the Minnesota Fremo N scalers have a wonderful layout. We're hoping to use that layout for some operation classes. It's long enough that we can teach timetable and train orders. And the HO scale is up and running at Burnsville. And one of the things too, across from the one in Burnsville, they had a pop-up hobby shop, which we should check out. He sells a lot of consignment things, but these are all the times are posted on the Twin Cities Division Facebook group page. So check that out. So there's lots of trains to see over the Christmas running. And once again, coming up, so our next meetings in January and February will be on Zoom. Randy Relander is working up some special presentations. And then, like I said, February Operators Retreat, March, the annual modelers. April, we're going to have layout tours, 2 weekends in 2 different parts of the city. And then May, we have our annual convention, which, William, you had a great time at your first convention, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. And again, it was one of those things that we hadn't attended. And, you know, someone just said, you know, come on down, go down and check it out. And again, there was not enough time to see everything we wanted to see. The layout tours were amazing. The overall setup and just the I guess banter, I guess would be the better word to be using, had between fellow modelers. I always feel like the weekends always end too soon. And it's one of those type of things that I enjoy, these type of conversations that we have, whether it's through the podcast or, you know, through a stream like this. But these live events, again, it goes right back to the opportunity to be able to have those conversations directly with fellow modelers. And that's what it's all about. Yeah,
exactly. That's what it's all about. The convention is socializing with model trains and real trains thrown in. It's too much fun for that long weekend. And there's the convention we're talking about, the Sawdust City Day Hauler, minimal cost. Your NMRA dues are paying off already. Wonderful hotel, beautiful on-site restaurant. It's in the center of everything. You can get to the Canadian National Railroad, you get to the Union Pacific Railroad, you can get to the Leinenkugel's Brewery, where we'll be sending an armed guard to drag Greg Dahl back every night from there, so he doesn't in the hospitality room. But yeah, it's a beautiful place. We got speeder trips. I don't know if you've ever ridden on a speeder. but you take a long trip down from Durand on the old Milwaukee Road. They used to head to the river on a float bridge. That's amazing. And then we'll have live stream in the Carson Park. Beautiful logging park there, museum, clinic, of course, the tours, celebration room, banquets, and the lucky ticket raffle, which will have amazing prizes. And we'd like to throw our support out to our brick and mortar shop, Scale Model Supplies. They support NMRA, our region, our division. I'd like to thank Hub Hobby, giving us some gift certificates for our holiday party. And also we want to thank Scenic Express, donated all of the scenery items pretty much for our Modeler Skills Day. And say in chat if you went to the Modeler Skills Day, we've already started planning the next one. So that was so popular that we're going to be doing it again. And we just want to show appreciation to companies like Scenic Express. So if you order anything from them, say, hey, thanks for the donation to our division. We really appreciated that. So, and that concludes the business portion. So I guess we can start drinking now.
Oh,
So,
I think we already have.
if you want to tell, yeah,
out.
that's again, it's called day drinking. No, if you want to explain to everybody what we're going to be seeing tonight, I'll let
Yeah,
you
we're going to take
away.
a look at a live look of the Hiawatha Elevated District. It's actually going to be the 3 Williams. I'm going to go into the layout room in just a moment. But I've got my son and my dad. They're already started. They started operating about 6:30. So they're about 45 minutes into it. We're going to kind of take a look and see how many cars they've moved. And then also take a look at and have you guys tell us what your moves might be. We're going to take a look at Nokomis. And there's some online moves, which mean they're cars that are moving within the industry. And we just get kind of the picking of the brains, if you will. I always feel like there's good feedback. Not being a prototype actual railroader, I'm a model railroader. I don't know exactly. Sometimes, Tom, you're working for the Union Pacific. You always throw out some of those, the quote unquote pro tips. So we're going to take a look in there. And I'm going to throw up just real quick here for you is the track plan. So this is what we're looking at. My space isn't that large. This is coming out of the model railroaders building the right sized railroad or layout that Tom Klomoski put together. So this illustration just shows the gentleman is kind of standing right about where we're going to discuss some of the movements in regards to an online move. But I'm going to step in there in just a moment, but give you guys also a look at the switch list that those guys are looking at. I've got my track plan on the right-hand side. That just tells us obviously where industries are. It gives them kind of a cheat sheet, if you will. The green means it's going to be a car that's pulled out of an industry, and a red is going to be a spot. And then you're going to see the blue writing. That's the inner movement, which is taking place of a car moving within an industry. An example would be from the wash rack into the shed or where the loading would take place. So I'm going to pop in there. Tom, you're going to have to relay or at least let us know if there's any questions or comments.
Sure.
Because when I pop in there, I won't see the screen, but I will be able to converse with you guys.
Quick question. Looking at your schematic there,
Yeah.
the red line will be considered on your switch list. The red line would be considered the main line.
Yep.
Okay. And then
Yep.
the other things are, and in the small print, does it say how many cars will fit on those, or do they have track numbers or anything?
Track numbers are identified on there. I should have given you a better blown up view to see. It says track, I think it's track one from main out from the main line. So track 1 is the closest to the main, track 2. And then at Cargill, the spots go in order. I think it goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 from where you start all the way into your industry.
And it's JMRI created.
It is. This is JMRI's switch list. This was populated just last night. I did pull some cars off and then repopulated a new switch list. Those guys are using what we see on the screen. And Tom, you feel free if you want to throw that up or pull off whatever you want to show on there. But I'm going to pop into the other room and we'll take a look.
All right. So this would be pretty good. You guys get alive. Ask some questions because we're going to pose some operating questions to you. And we'll see if we can get them all going there. There we go. We're going to pose some operating questions to you and see what moves you would make. There we go.
We're in here now.
You can tell who's the brains of the outfit right now. So
We got a little bit of echo coming from those guys.
a little bit of echo. You're good. Okay.
We're good?
Yep.
All right, let me turn this one down.
There's the real fan cam.
All right, so guys, what we've got here right now, they're working their way through. They've switched out. This is Cargill. Cargill, they ended up spotting this car. I see this car got moved. And then did you guys switch any of these?
Pulled the 2 Sioux line on the next track over.
Okay.
It was just
So they end
two
up
pulls.
pulling 2 of the ACF hoppers here.
Right.
So these 2 came out, and then they end up. Did you spot any?
No.
So no cars were spotted. They just ended up pulling 2. Our next move that we're going to take a look at. This is Nokomis. The elevator would normally be right here, but our move that we've got, the blue writing is showing that we want these 2 cars here are going to go into the shed. And if they're going into the shed, I'm guessing this car is getting pulled. And then we're probably going to get a couple more wash rack cars. When you guys are looking at your operations, if you're going to make a move like this, do you pull your spots first? Do you end up, setting yourself up by using what cars you're going to set in by pulling your spot, grabbing the car you need, shoving in and pulling it out? Feel free to throw that in the comments. Tom, if you want to throw it out to us, if anybody has asked any questions.
All righty. We'll throw that out there. We'll see what we get from our amateur switchmen out here. So,
Well, these guys, if they're sitting down there, I see,
We're
but
amateurs.
come on back this way.
So we're going to hit that crossover. So
Now, in terms of
Take it
operations on the elevator district, this is the first time these 2 have worked together for one. William has been my throttle jockey or my engineer quite a bit, so he's pretty comfortable with the actual pace of the trains and the locomotives. I like a little bit slower operation, so the speed that you're seeing him move right now, he's on notch 4 on the proto throttle, and the proto throttle just gives us a nice, I guess, more realistic feel. It does slow things down a little bit, but if an 8-year-old can run it, then I think more often than an 80-year-old could even try to run it. But this is kind of a nice pace for us. The speed, Tom Klomoski kind of recommended, it's about 15 miles an hour, scale miles an hour, which is a nice pace to be moving. There are no magnets on these junctures here, but I do have a couple of magnets right here. Make sure I didn't bump ourselves there.
stop there.
all right. Can you hear me, William?
Yep.
All right. First question. Do you use magnetic uncouplers?
Well, yeah, we do. The style that I'm using is just the KD flat magnets. I do have over at the Atkinson mill, I've got a couple that have cut out the space and I put the magnet underneath. It's one of those large ones. Between the 2 of them, we do leave all of our coupler hoses on it. These ones, the flat style, are just so much more reliable. I end up finding that uncoupling and coupling. Are you guys pulling these cars?
I thought we threw that out to the crowd to see what they thought.
Okay, Tom, if nobody answered on terms of what move to make, what would be your move as an engineer?
Well, we got answers, and it's so far about 66-0 on pull first. So,
All right, so pull first. We're taking this ATSF, which is a Santa Fe air slide.
Yep.
And is the Great Northern car coming out?
No.
So this car is staying, this car is pulling.
Well, it is a pull. I thought we were working on the changing out the cars to the wash rack.
We are. So
From wash to shed.
So are both of these cars coming out?
So M&S 801 from wash to shed.
Yep, that one's going to shed.
In Milwaukee, 209
It's going to
is
shed.
wash
They want to see this one pulled. So William, come in and make your joint, and we're taking that car too. That one's coming out. So now, dealing with this track, are you doing anything with M&S 3015 and then the Great Northern Air Slide?
M&S 3015 is from Nokomis track 2 as a pull.
Go ahead. This car is getting pulled too. And then the GN, that's good, William, pull it back. GN 71687.
That is also a pull.
Okay, so all this is getting pulled. These guys are saying pull this one. We're going to take these 2 with us. So when they're pulling forward, they'll make their move here, and then we'll come back in and take these 2.
the next operating question is, are we able to kick cars?
Not very well. Only because at 15 miles an hour, if these things could roll a little better, we could definitely kick them. I personally, I have, but I know that I'd be able to get my locomotive moving a little faster and then just hit the e-brake and kick it. That's about as good as it gets.
That's good.
So
All
I'll
right.
throw the turnout for them. The turnouts that are operated here, these are boat buttons. They're aquatic, used for boats for honking horns and stuff. eBay, it's either eBay or Amazon. If you see these silver dots, those are all they're boat buttons or horn buttons. The cost of them is about $20 for, I want to say it's 5 or 6 of them. But they make for a nice, just a smooth button. You go ahead and you got to push in and take these two. You what?
You have to throw the switch?
No, I did. You're ready to go.
All right. Is
The engineer
the
was making
engineer
sure that I had cleared the coupler and I wasn't
Very
standing
good.
back there. So we appreciate
the
it. Didn't run us
engineer-
over.
I'm sorry. Next question. Is the engineer using a proto throttle?
He is. You want to hold it up for him so that they can see?
Yeah,
So
there
he's
you
using-
go.
It's the proto throttle. It does have a couple of upgrades. Scott Thornton did those knobs, so those light knobs are a little different. You can take control there. Stop yourself. And the proto throttle itself, in terms of its overall, it had been slimmed down. I did a video on how I cut these things down. That one he's holding is a little bit thinner than this, but it makes for a nice size. And the overall modification, it's not crazy, but it takes a little bit of skill to be able to run it through the table saw and cut it down, but it's definitely doable. Batteries were moved from being inside just onto the bottom. And then these are the Scott Thornton knobs that I made reference to.
Now, your pro tip is to just run the case through the saw, right? Not the whole throttle.
That's true. It might cost you a little bit if you're running through the whole throttle, but I mean, if you're really good, set your height of your saw just high enough that it doesn't cut the circuit board. But that's a challenge that we'll let anybody that wants to try to do it on their own.
Okay,
But it
the
works out
next
pretty good.
more questions here. You still have the critter you made for Shire malting, right?
Yep.
Okay. Somebody wanted to make sure you still had that. Here it comes.
Yep. Just to give you guys a look,
Ooh.
there is the little critter. It was made out of an AHM switcher, and it's got this similar look. I end up putting GE doors on it, and there's a video on how I made that little bugger, but I do use it. It does scuttle around. It's not overly reliable. There is a keep alive in it, but it doesn't have a flywheel, so it's kind of got that herking and jerking motion, and I don't know, it's like a bad signal on internet. That's how this thing runs.
All right. The next question came all the way from New York City, and he noticed that everyone on the layout is named William. So is that a requirement to operate that everyone have a William, or is that just
It is for tonight, and when we introduce each other, it's always William, 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 William. It's William Scott, William Gregory, and William Matthew. So
very good.
It's senior, junior, and junior. However you want to try to match us up.
Okay, so we also had a question about the height of the layout. Can you sit and switch?
So it is designed. I do have, there's another stool here that height-wise, I literally, because of the magnets on the far end, I will sit here with a proto throttle and a beverage, and I can switch everything just by sitting right here because the switches are all right here. I'd almost be kind of sitting where William's at, and I can make all my moves that I need to. And even so that I will just use my pick and I'll take an extra move where I'll pull a cut out, I'll offset myself and then shove a cut maybe down to Cargill and then pull out without having to stand up and walk over there and try to uncouple it. Part of the reliability to me, if you can get your railroad running well enough that you don't have to worry about it dying or having to go re-rail something, work on your track work, and once it's working well enough, you should be able to do all the movements without having to get up and walk around. But it is a seated railroad, and I do have another room that has the expansion. So this goes into another room, and it is designed where the first level is a person sitting on the ground or in a roller chair, the next person sitting in a stool, and then I have another deck that would be designed to be at eye level, which is known as the ditch. Those are all long distance plans because he's only this tall, and I'm sure I probably won't get to it until he's this tall. That'd be the railroad is a long process. Model railroading is.
So next question, knowing how railroads act when visitors arrive, did you clean the track tonight?
I did clean the track. I vacuumed, and actually the room itself, I had a bunch of other rolling stock on the rails because I was testing stuff out. And I'm just going to pop you guys off the tripod real quick and bring you over here. There's some of it still sitting here. We have a Bob Rivard SD40-2 and a tank car that he had given me. And then this one here I had gotten from fellow modelers.
So
And then this one here. So the Central, Minnesota, and Western, those are the Batowski boys, if you know.
Up to the Sioux cars, and then, but stop when you get there.
Paul and some of the other guys, that's their railroad. But I did clean the track, and in terms of overall operation, I've been fairly happy with being able to just turn it on and run it. That's your best way to clean your track, is to be using it. But believe it or not, gremlins come because you're going to do something live. This is the SW1200. Never really ran down to the Hiawatha Elevated District. My MP15 AC, when I turned it on this morning, it died. It just, couldn't turn it on. Lights wouldn't come on. Nothing. So it seems inevitable. And there's hidden inside here is an SW1500. That's number 1400, another former M&S engine, which would not have been down at the Elevator District. It's sitting there because I wasn't using the critter, and then this died. So I was going to use it as my backup. It's my backup engine. So the backup to the backup is the backup, and the backup there happens to be a Rapido's SW1200. For the most part, right out of the box. The volume on it when I got it was at 100%. It's set right now today at 10%. So anybody that thinks a locomotive is too loud, I'm not sure if you guys can hear it running, but I'd bring the volumes down so they're not screaming, and then we can hear them from a mile away.
So the next question, how do you figure out the most efficient moves? Prototype?
Say that one more time, Tom.
How do you figure out the most efficient moves?
Well, one of the first efficiency things would be probably not dragging our cars halfway across the Elevator District. Is I think a lot of times looking a few moves ahead. I know they say it's kind of like chess. And I was talking to Tom, we were discussing this before we gone live, is the pulls and the setouts. Some railroads don't allow you to have the space to be able to set out those cars that you're pulling. So you kind of have to pull, set, pull, set, pull, set. And when that happens, Joe Binish's alley jobs are very notorious for that, in my opinion, is that I started to find that it was a lot easier to pull and set than it was to pull everything and then set everything. So efficiency really comes down to, I think, case by case. But in the element of the way the Elevator District works, I know the industries well enough. I know what cars need to come in and out of areas that I start looking at it going, well, I know air slides are going to go into get flour loading. They got to get washed first. So when I have cars that I'm pulling, I'm looking at my train going, I already know air slides are going to get washed. So they're going to show up at the wash rack. Jammer I is set up to be able to take on some cars that are already washed. So they come in clean because companies could order cleaned cars. So it's not always going to guarantee that they go there, but it's becoming familiar with the industries. And that's how I feel like becoming more efficient as an operator is to be able to run the railroad a few times to be able to get used to it. Wouldn't you say, Tom?
Tom's muted.
Did we lose Tom? Well, if we did lose Tom, I know that we're still looking at our moves that were taking place here.
Do you have the Donaldson? There we go. Do you have the Donaldson's layout on your, Donaldson's building on your layout?
Yep, Donaldson is located right here. Technically, it's Donaldson, the department store. Donaldson was pulled out of there by 1985, but I do like the fact that it brings in boxcars, and that was an element that I left in there because I figured, you know what? It's not all grain cars and all hopper because that would get a little bit boring. So if we do swing over onto this side, I do have the Hiawatha lumber. Again, their service had ceased to continue by 85, but I still want to bring in some center beams and some bulkheads. So I end up leaving that in there, as well as Friesman. I call it Friesman, which is after Gary Friesman.
There you go.
Friesman was the actual
Don't get
name
too
of the
fast.
facility, but I thought, boy, if they're that close, I think it was meant to be. Pays homage to Gary and his operations. So this building will get boxcars as well. And then down in the end, General Mills and Atkinson, that goes back to having air slides and hoppers.
Hey, I'm going to show the Railfan cam, and you have 5 tracks he's switching. Do you have a pointer?
Yep.
Tell us what each of those tracks are.
Yep. So what we've got here, and he's actually taken these 2 cars, he's setting them in the shed. So this is track 2 shed. It's spot 1, spot 2. That usually, it will have a built-up structure that will go right in this area. But both of these locations are for flour loading. Okay, and then this is where our wheat, our raw wheat comes in. That's where it's unloaded. And then we have a wash rack. There's 2 spots for wash rack on track 1. The wash rack, obviously, if an air slide comes in dirty, it comes in, it gets cleaned, and then it gets shoved in. And that's what these 2 cars are having happen right now. Now, I believe there's 2 cars that's here. These cars are actually, this is his train that he's working with. This is the main line. And these 2 cars here are going to be coming into the wash rack. So I know those are going to probably land here. And then if he does have a feed car, he's going to get a feed car that will come in here as well. Now the next track over, this technically would be known as the siding for the Hiawatha Elevated District, but I'm using it as essentially yard storage. And that's where these guys are sticking their cars that they're pulling. They have the choice of either sticking them here, or they can pull their cutout and start shoving them into the back, because into that room going that way is an extra about 20 car spots. It's got enough space to be able to stick 20 cars in there. And the one against the wall, this is Cargill, the industry. And Cargill has 2 door spots. And it has 4 grain spots. Now these guys here, originally it was Minneapolis Seed, so it was a seed company. Then it was bought out by Cargill. And once it went to Cargill, they eventually then closed down, and it's no longer. Now they've turned it into apartments. But this facility here would come in with the raw materials, and it would go out in box cars independently. So you're basically bringing in the raw product, and you're converting it, and you're bagging it into separate bags into box cars. And then those would get pulled, and they obviously go out. So that's kind of the setup when you looked at those 5 tracks, Tom. This is Nokomis, Mainline, Siding, and Cargill.
They're trying to understand what you mean by a wash track.
Okay, great question. So wash track, I worked at General Mills down at Purity Oats, and we had what was considered a wash rack or a wash track, and it was not a rack that was cleaning the exterior of the car, but we had a gentleman named Kelly. He would come in and he would set cars up, and you had to clean the flour car and make sure that there was no debris or no moisture inside the car before it was able to be shipped out or loaded with flour. So we'd have cars shoved in, and they'd come into what we consider the wash track, and Kelly would go through and he'd get the whole thing cleaned. That night on our switch, we'd have him pull the cars that Kelly cleaned and then put them under the bays that were ready to be loaded with flour. So we had 4 tracks total, or 4 spots total, 2 tracks side by side inside the building, and that's the way it was set up to be able to get your car washed or cleaned before it could get loaded. We'd often get them from the BNSF, and they'd be wet inside, and sometimes they'd have flour in them, and you'd reject them, because if they still had sticky flour on the walls, they washed them, but they didn't wash them well enough. They'd reject it, that car would get pulled, and they'd spot us a new one the next day.
I'll come back.
All right. It seems some people understand that to a point here.
Well, it's a little different, right? I mean, an online move in this instance, it's given these guys, at least in this case, where those wash rack cars came in, those cars had to come in. You'll see them down at Nokomis, and I won't even say Atkinson. Nokomis is now closed, but they had areas where they would be open on the tops of the cars, and you'd see all the air slides with their vents open. And a lot of times they'd take box fans, and you'd set them on top of the car, crank the vent open on the bottom, and they would run those box fans to blow the air through it to get that water dried out. Now, I helped Kelly clean a couple of the cars on a number of occasions, and it was just a broom. I'd open the bottom of the air slide, and you'd stand up underneath, and you'd literally sweep the walls with the broom to get all the flour residue off the walls, sweep it all clean, and then they'd have the inspection come in. They'd look at it and say, okay, this one's good. You can fill it with flour. I'd write down that number. I would seal the bottom gates and grates. We'd fill the car. We'd take the plastic tarps, put them over the tops, and we'd seal the car up, and we'd be done and ready to go. One thing that's kind of fun from a modeling perspective, if you ever see an air slide, there are a couple of M&S, the Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern. They had some single bay air slides that the roof looks really bulged. If you ever see an air slide where that roof is really bulged, what they didn't do when they loaded the car was they didn't open a hatch and put a sock on it. And that sock allows the car to breathe when you're blasting that flour into it. If you don't do that, you'll bubble the roof. So if you ever see prototype cars, a lot of single bays that happen to it, happens on some of the two bays. But an air slide where that roof looks like it's gotten pregnant or it's bulging, that's because a guy didn't open the car and he blasted the flour, and it creates basically an air pocket and creates a bulge.
So are the wash rack moves specified on the JMRI switch lists?
Say it one more time.
Are the wash rack moves specified on your JMRI switch list?
So they are. So I don't know how well you can see it, or if you see the blue move means you're taking cars from the wash rack and bringing it to the shed. And the way that works within JMRI is I tell the system that the wash rack and the shed are just two separate spots, but they're moving within the same industry. So it turns it blue. It means the car is not leaving, it's just going to move somewhere in there. And you can do that with icing. If you're going to do reefers, let's say, and let's say you're going to ice a reefer, you're going to have it sit in a spot, and that's where they're going to fill it with the ice. And then you're going to maybe shove it down further, and that's when that reefer is going to get loaded, or however the icing business works. That's a better Mike Jordan question.
I'm muted again. Mike Jordan, I think, is in watching. He might be sober enough to answer. So
he's probably yelling about carrots. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So they asked about your couplers, scale couplers or normal KDs.
I use all scale. Now, what do you use?
Normal KDs.
So it's normal KDs because the coupler face on a number 5 coupler, he likes the movement of being able to have that undulation where the larger face. Where I use scale, they're all on the same level. There's no real change in track. I don't have an issue with it. But every car that I had gotten when I was younger, I was putting scales on everything. So these all do have the scale couplers. A lot of cars have the scale tread. And I've not run into any issues with either. But I know there are some people out there that they stick with the ones that give you a little bit more forgiveness, because if your track work's not perfect, you've at least got a little bit of love coming from the number 5 coupler faces.
Okay, why did you choose switch lists over, normal car cards and waybills or caveman pin on the top of the card stuff?
Bring it back.
Was that a question, Tom?
Yeah, why did you choose switch lists versus car cards or pins?
Well, it really started on my dad's railroad, the GN 1970. He had the car card system with a 2-sided waybill, and to turn an entire railroad over that had 500 and some cars, it would take sometimes a couple of days, just over a little bit of time here and there to get stuff turned over. We heard about JMRI. We figured we'd try it. And that's actually where I first started into JMRI. And in all honesty, his railroad, we've got 27 trains listed. We do not run them all in one session. 27 trains listed, but we'll run a series of movements. We'll see how many we can get done in 2.5 hours or 2 hours. And that whole railroad can be flipped in about 15 minutes of time. And the biggest time suck comes from us moving engines on the stub end to have to get the engines ran around the cabooses turn, because all the trains that go into his west staging are all nose in, and we have to back those trains out, put the power on the other end, and then shove it back in to be ready for the next session. So that's why we chose switch list. It's a little bit cleaner. There's not car cards to drop. It takes a little bit of learning to understand kind of what the actual writing on the switch list is asking for. It's not in order by industry. It's actually in order by alphabet. So there's a couple of things, in my opinion, that I'm not a huge fan of, and that being one of them. But the switch list itself, it ends up kind of, I guess, rehealing itself if you already have everything all in your system. Because if I have a car out of place, it's 1-2 clicks on my computer, and it's like, okay, that car didn't get moved. It's still at Nokomis, and it's fixed. I don't have to worry about it. I do have this sheet Now, Tom, you don't have the sheet on the PDF, but for people that are looking at this here, this is actually what I use to vet the railroad. And I go through and I just run down the list. It's already in order. I can just take a quick glance and tell exactly where cars are. Now, that same philosophy on his railroad, he's got 500. It takes 9 sheets that look like this. And that turns into, I hand it to a couple other guys at the railroad and just say, just look through the list. And if there are cars that are missing, cross them out or something of that nature. But most of our operators get cars where they need to go. And as worrisome as it might be that you lose a car, it doesn't happen that often, because if you show up in an industry and someone goes, hey, there's a 40-foot in Delano, it doesn't show up on my switch list. I walk over to the computer and I says, well, it shows that it's in Union. I click it to Delano, now it's in Delano, and the next time the system regenerates, it'll take care of it. So it's not as worrisome of losing cars as I think a lot of times people might think.
Okay, we got a couple of questions here. They're coming faster than you can answer them, so you might want to use less syllables or words here. So
I can do that.
do you have to set up those moves with Schedule and Operations Pro? The cleaning and so forth.
I hope I answer this correctly, but you actually do tell the system, I can tell it Monday through Friday, how often certain industries get certain action. But the way my off-staging works is that my off-staging, every car that these guys pull, when it leaves, it's going to leave and it's going to, we're just going to use this as an example, but a hopper car, it's going to go to what I call track 1 hoppers. Track 1 hoppers, all it does is turns it from being empty to loaded. So when it gets shoved offline, next time it's going to come back on, it's going to come back loaded, right? So I have loaded spots at there in Atkinson and General Mills, as well as Elevator T. The system's going to say, hey, I need loaded cars, and it'll just grab them and start throwing them into place. So I do schedule it. I do tell it where I want stuff to go. That's what the back end type of stuff looks like, but I hope that answers that question.
Okay, and Ken Zeska wanted to know, how would you model that bulge on an air slide?
Well, this is, I've looked at it because I have 2 M&S air slides I'm going to do. And my thought process is to heat up the top of the car. You can pop these lids off. So if I can pop the lid off, I'm going to heat it up and just basically start to lightly push into it to kind of create that bulge. And that's going to be, hopefully, I'm going to try it. Don't worry. It'll be at the modeler's retreat or at a modeler's meet in the future, because it is a car that there's 2 M&S ones that I have photos of, and both of them have that bulge. So my thought there, Ken, would be heat that up and then try to get those things just at a high point in the middle.
All right. You reject cars for being dirty. Do you set a percentage?
Wow.
Say that again?
Your car's rejected for being dirty. Do you set a percentage?
Go forward.
You can, absolutely. So when you go through, you can tell it by percentage of how often a car is going to show up. So you can even tell it how often you want to have clean cars come in, right? So you can have a clean car come in, and if it comes in and you want to have it dirty, you could have it come in and it won't go to the clean spot. It'll actually send it back to return staging. So it won't go through wash rack to loading to then leaving. It'll go wash rack, and then you can go reject and kick that one back out. I don't personally have any of those on, but I do have a low percentage of cars that are going in as clean, which means that the actual elevators aren't getting, they're not contacting the Milwaukee Road saying, bring us in clean cars, we'll clean them ourselves. That's the way I've got it set up. It's at low percentage.
Okay, so Mike Jordan asks, to make multiple movements, do you ever insert handwritten instructions?
I personally don't. I know Dan Dosa does. He provides a handwritten instruction. It's a great little added piece that you could put into this type of operation, because when you get a car, much like I just explained earlier, if a car got cleaned and it got spotted on track 2, the bay up above in the elevator is actually ready to load track 1. And that's not uncommon. I have to write on my switch list for General Mills and say, we have to take track 2 Milwaukee Road air slide. We need to put it on track 1 spot 4 because that bay is ready. That's where the flower is. So that's a nice little touch. I think it's a good wrinkle. Dan does that on his railroad. He's got like a little mailbox that, or a little contraption where you can open it. He has like a little instruction written to say special instruction. Now, I guess you guys answer in the group, but do you like that type of stuff? I personally do as an advanced like operator. I like some of those nuances. But is there anybody that thinks it's just kind of, you know, extra paperwork and I'd rather just move the stuff where it needs to go and not have those little wrinkles in there? See if anybody responds to that there, Tom.
All right, next on the agenda. So how long would each car take to wash? Did only the night shift clean these?
In the prototype world, we cleaned everything we needed to that night. And if Kelly didn't get it done, I was a material handler. He would leave the night shift, and if I came in the morning, he'd just go, "Hey, Bill, track 2, spot 4, that car is almost done. Can you just knock down the last half of it?" And I would go in and do it. For JMRI, I have it rotate as if 3 shifts are always happening. So every time we run, that would be basically the one time you come in and switch. The next time it's going to go from wash rack, it's going to move into the next operating session it's going to grab. So I don't do any online moves in the time that we're sitting here running. We'll just run it one time through, and then once that operating session's done, it's done, and then the next day rolls around. But the prototype, 4 spots, we could usually clean a car in a couple hours. So in an 8-hour shift, you should get your 4 cars cleaned if it's going to get loaded Monday morning or the next morning. And those guys would get those things ready. And if they weren't, while they were loading the other ones, you were cleaning that last car just to get it ready. You could only load so many cars, at least at General Mills Purity Oats, on track 1 because the bays were up above. The outside tracks, when I refer to wash tracks, those outside 2 tracks, those ones were always the cleaning cars because those are the cars that the next day's spot, they'd pull it and shove it that night. So you're only loading 2 cars a day. Those are the 2 cars that were going out.
So on the layout of the size of this, you run real time a 2-hour session.
Yeah, I mean, right now, these guys, if they were clipping along, they're working on just this one end.
No clip.
These 2 will do good to finish this end in 2 hours-ish. Now, the other industries are not as, like Nokomis and Atkinson are the most complex. Those ones have the online moves. General Mills, those guys weren't, it wasn't a mill. They weren't going through, they weren't making flour. That's purely storage. So they would get a grain rush, they'd get all the cars, they'd load up silos with the grain, and then those cars would just sit and be in storage, and then they go and they unload them, and then gets used elsewhere. Whether it was just running across to Atkinson or to Nokomis, I never saw it happen, but it's not to say that it didn't if they needed to get some oats. But they could be putting wheat in those elevators. I mean, I don't even know what General Mills on the elevator district was necessarily receiving. That would be a Colin T. Hart question. Colin's got that information down pat. Now, these 2 have moved around to this other side.
Well, only because they just happened to be in our train. Just by chance, these cars were here. So we're going to spot the M&S car at Friesman.
So what we're looking at here, guys, is on their train, the one hopper car, I can tell the M&S, which is against the engine. That particular car is going to go to Atkinson. The other 2 box cars, because they're box cars, have either go to Friesman or they're going to go to Donaldson. And I'm going to say the M&S 40-foot is going to Donaldson, or to Friesman, and then the Grand Trunk 60-foot is going to go to Donaldson. I don't know if we lost Tom. There's Tom. Did we lose you there?
That's good.
Yeah, something went haywire here, and I'm not even operating there. So,
Stop.
All right, Zantigo or Taco Bell sauce is the next question.
Well, I mean, Mom asked the question, but that was, I'd say Zantigo. I'd say Zantigo just to be brand loyal. But I mean, I think Taco John's actually might be ahead of Taco Bell.
You can bring it back.
All right, so here's the question of the night. As a novice operator with no rail ops knowledge, what job would you place me in for my first time? Would he have to clean out the grain cars? Would that be good for Dan?
I think if you're doing it as you're getting hired on for the first time, the cleanouts are probably the best job. As a novice operator, I mean, working here in the Hiawatha Elevated District, I'd probably put you in position of engineer. You can see this guy is having a hard time with his conductor. But I think in terms of the overall, they got an issue with the switch there, I can see. But I think the overall options for jobs, if you ever start at a new railroad that you've never been at, ask some of the guys that are there and just say, which is a comfortable job. Don't necessarily go with the easiest job, just go with one that's comfortable. If you like switching, find one that's switching. If you like mainline, take that mainline as that first time operation. But really, it's just repetition. Give yourself the most opportunity to do as many jobs as you can at operating railroads, but ask the old heads what they might like to do.
And not this old head.
he likes to run the main line, not switch, folks. So they're
That's
doing
right.
pretty
He
good.
is
That's
out
right.
of his element here. He was ready to come in and just be a throttle jockey, and I says, "Well, William can run your switch list, and you could do the throttle." And I don't know if we'd see the same results.
But yeah, I think some people are. This was like the operator's retreat is so excellent for people who feel they're gun shy. And I saw some layout owners, I put them up on the screen, posted some excellent answers to new people. We'll make them comfortable. 2-person crew will make them the engineer, And I think we also want to put out there, as Greg Dahl and the rest of the operators retreat crew will say, you can't make mistakes. No one's going to yell at you we're not going to get our mythical products to the mythical factory in time. So it's all learning,
And I'm still learning.
Still learning. But I think you're proving the point that these smaller layouts can be just as entertaining for many people for hours, as anything else. Gotta unmute you.
I think that's part of it too, because a lot of the conversations that you have, as far as just learning a lot of the nuances that can be had, when you're operating, these guys aren't necessarily, ready to jump in. This is the first time my dad and him have worked together. When you do work at another railroad, or you operate somewhere that you're not used to running, I feel like it's intimidating, just because it's one of those things that you're not comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be ready to just jump in. And if you've got issues, you start sweating, and then you start sweating, you start panicking. And to eliminate a lot of that type of, I don't know, you want to call it anxiety, is just to be able to get into a position that it's all, like Mike Slater said, it's all about fun and games, until you get a paper cut on the switch list. But I think, like Greg Dahl, he's got a real nice layout, and the way it's set up, it's open, it's spacious. He's only pushing you a little bit just to kind of keep you moving, but he's not, bawling you out and telling you that you can't, you're doing it wrong. Because trust me, if he doesn't know that the transmissions or engines are out of order going into his Ford plant, only he is going to notice. I knew it, but I wanted to save time. But at the end of the day, it's about having fun and enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. I think Greg sums it up when you leave one of his sessions. He always asks, "Did you have fun?" That's the whole point. I see Dave. Oh, pair up a new person with someone experienced, because we want more operators, right? I mean, we need operators.
Well, and that's just it. And I feel like there are a number of operators that we've even said, anybody that wants to operate the Hiawatha Elevated District, you can clearly probably do better than the 2 that are currently running the show right now. One guy's on his phone, and the other guy is eating a sucker. So I think they're enjoying themselves, but it's still always one of those things that I look at as far as the opportunity to be able to do it. I'm more than welcome to have people come in and learn how to run and to switch. I'm right now in the process of vetting my railroad to know that everything's working. That's my goal. And right now, we found out tonight, locomotive went down. My backup locomotive, it went down. And then now I pull out another engine, and these guys just ran into what was the far right side, and that's Atkinson. That area had just had the track painted. I was talking about some of the stuff that I've been working on. I painted the track in there. I cleaned it the best I could, but now I'm vetting, is it working well enough that I'm going to know that it's going to be reliable when the time comes. So I don't want to ballast. I feel like ballast is the cement of a railroad, and then I can get glue in the points, and I'm not doing that yet.
No, save your ballasting like the week before Minrail. That's
Oh yeah, well, there's only a couple of guys that have done that.
the week before an operations week, and then you got to go to that. So, do you see any other questions that people are asking you? Or
I didn't see any that had popped off offhand, but I do want to let people know I have been working on a new series that I'm putting together for YouTube. It's a total departure from the stuff I've done. It's not walking away from the Hiawatha Elevated District. It is about more modeling. I've done a lot more modeling. It's something I really enjoy. So Ken, you kind of challenged me a little bit to do those M&S hoppers. I have decals for them. I have the hoppers I want to use. In fact, those guys had pulled that ATSF. It was a Santa Fe single bay. That's going to be one of those M&S hoppers. So bulging that roof is something that I want to do it because I've seen it in the photos. I've seen it too many times to not at least make it happen. But then in addition to that, I've been working on, and there's a couple of them here. I've got an M&S, there's M&S book. So this is the M&S. It's a freight car equipment guide. Now, these are just proofs, but in these, we're talking, if you like anything Minneapolis, we're talking, it's full color. I've got notes and stuff in this particular one because, like I said, it's a proof. But this here, it will be available. And Tom, the URL, as weird as this is, for anybody that wants to reserve a copy, it's at tinyurl.com/MNS book. And I will type it out in the chat so you guys can see it.
you or Ken Zeska, yeah, type that out there. And
this will just give you the opportunity to be able to at least place an order. And that's not guaranteeing that it's going to show up at your door in a week, because this is hopefully going to press at the end of the month. If it goes to press by the end of the month, I'm going to have a few overages, but I'm still really trying to guarantee a number that I want to be able to produce these books at. I'm doing 2 different extra covers. So these are actually what I would consider the standard cover will be yellow. There will be one that I'm going to donate to the Duluth Superior Museum that's going to be repainting the M&S number 11. And then I've got a white cover. It's currently not here today, but the white cover is going to be one that we'll donate to the Sioux Line Historical Society. I've had the opportunity to work with some of these guys, and they had so much information that I was just blown away. And I'm extremely grateful for the fact that they saved the information, but then we're able to put it into a book that will be able to allow people to reference a small railroad like the Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern. But when people say, it's a regional, it's only in Minneapolis, these things were from West Coast to East Coast. They had cars that were blocked out on the East Coast for General Mills. They had cars that were out on the West Coast that were just for lumber. And then they had cars that would even bebop down from the General Mills plant, not General Mills, General Motors plant out of Detroit. And they ran down to Dallas, Texas. They ran all over the system. So if you're an M&S enthusiast, it's perfect for you. But if you like just a small railroad and want to be able to model it on your railroad, there's a pretty good chance that you'd be able to at least get 1 or 2 cars that can kind of traverse your system. And now he said, how many operators to accommodate on the layout? Really, one person. It's designed kind of like Tom originally designed his, was just for one, just for me. But my son and I spend a lot of time down there. We'll switch cars out periodically. Again, he's usually my throttle jockey, and that gives us the opportunity to kind of hang out and spend time with one another. But 2 guys is ideal. Joe Binish and Dave Hamilton, Dave Voss. Tom, you're on the list, so you want to get down here or come up here and have the opportunity to run the railroad. And any of you guys that are with the NMRA or not, if you're around the area and you want to try to set something up, my schedule is pretty chaotic. The little guy in the video, he's got hockey, baseball. My daughter's got soccer, dance. There's all kinds of stuff going on. But that doesn't change the fact that I enjoy operating. It's definitely one of those fun things to do. I've been fortunate enough to be able to run operations with my dad. He and I have gone to a lot of different sessions at a lot of different places. Through the modelers meet, once you meet some of these guys, they invite you back. If you're a good guest, there's a chance that you can return. So be on your best behavior. Don't eat all of the M&Ms. It's not recommended to pour it in your gullet. Like, just be pouring those M&Ms in your hatch. Those are snacks for everybody.
Rules. Now he's coming up with rules, Greg. I don't know.
It's just fun, though. I mean, I think that's the biggest part of it. A lot of you guys, I've not met a number of individuals that have had conversations with us. We've got Graham Stockfield, who's out of Australia. He came up and we had the opportunity to meet with him. But these are just, it's a way to connect a world globally in an interest that we all kind of can collectively share, both our positive and negative experiences that we've had with model railroading. Because 2 engines down, those engines I've used time and time again. We have this event this evening, and I couldn't have an MP15, the SW1500 dies, and then I go to another locomotive that came right out of the box.
Nope, I'm muting it. He's looking at that list like it's homework for math tomorrow. He's going to get an A.
Well, the best
he's
part
yelling
is,
at Dad and got the wrong car.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, now it depends on who's the throttle jockey here. He handed him the paperwork.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like switching. That's one of the things that I enjoy, and that's why I built the Hiawatha Elevator District. My dad, he said, is the mainline guy. But at the same time, when you do have opportunities, we have worked as a two-person crew at a number of different railroads, and it is kind of fun. I mean, we can bust each other's balls about how somebody's doing something or how something gets spotted, and enjoy the camaraderie. But at the same time, I mean, it is a good little problem solving or puzzle for a kid to kind of dive into and kind of look at. I can notice that he's got a pick in his hand, not a pencil. So I'm not sure how he's noting where cars are coming and going. But at the same time, it's a learning experience, and that's what kind of makes this fun.
I think we should turn it black and white and give him a hat and overalls, and it'd be the 1950s here.
Yeah,
so
and sunglasses or a blindfold.
Be conductor yelling at his engineer to wake up. I like that.
Well, you don't want to take it too prototypical, because you could send the engineer in the other room because he can't see his train anyhow, and then just go by hand signals in the hallway.
That would make for an interesting session. Anybody else in chat have any more questions? We've been going here for an hour, so over 70 people. I guess we're gonna have to bring William back every week from now on. We'll start paying him the stipends. Gruesome Casket's gonna have to cough up some more money for this. Has anybody got any more questions about small layouts and switching? You guys asked height and couplers and all the layout questions, but who here has a smaller switching layout? If just say it in chat. And I think it's a disservice. Dan Dosa and I talk about this all the time, that it's a disservice to keep showing all these huge layouts. I appreciate the people who built huge layouts, but I think wanting one, you forget about how much cost, maintenance, equipment, and getting that many people together takes a lot of work. I mean, I see Dave Berman's here. The lacrosse guys have done that very well. But I mean, it's herding cats if you want 8 operators,
Well, I know this ends up being kind of random, and I always generally do. I've been doing it more often than not. But I've got a number of different decal sets that I had put together. Tom, is there any way to do a little lottery out of this group, or do you have any ability to?
Sure, you put me on the issue. Hang on a moment, and I will look that up. I'll put.
And while Tom looks that up, the only reason I mention that is I think a lot of times there are very easy ways to re-decal. And even in this case, whether it's license plates on your automobiles, or even just putting new reporting marks on the side of a freight car, since railroads acquired old equipment, in some cases it could have just been, an old gray air slide. All they did is change the lettering on it. And I think a lot of times that simple type of update, it gives you a car that nobody else has. And then in addition, it's just a little bit of a modeling technique or tip that allows you to have new rolling stock or have more authentic rolling stock. I ended up seeing that I think Rapido, Tangent, and Exact Rail had a couple of cars that had very minimal data on them. And I just ended up taking off some of the reporting marks, letters, numbers, built date, and then applied the M&S, and I've got myself a one-off car that they only had a handful of, But then even for our operations, if you even look at the cars that these guys have been shuffling around, most of them have billboard lettering, or they have some sort of, large print. And I'm trying to get away from that a little bit by doing stuff that's a little bit more prototypical. I was just reading some of the questions and comments that people have been rolling in with. I think a lot of times this one is 10 by 12. Bill, you noticed that you had one that's 12 by 12. He has 55 car spots. And that it works well. I've got 45 cars currently on the Hiawatha Elevated District. And that ends up being one of those type of things that it gives you the opportunity to move plenty of freight. But at the same time, it doesn't have to just be a huge yard and then you're having to feed a particular location. No, Mike Slater said 16 by 6, 12 by 16. I always say too is, take a 4x8 sheet of plywood, rip it in half, and you've got yourself a nice 2 by 16, and that's plenty to work with. I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's great for switching. And Mike builds some wonderful, models. His linear North Shore collection is just to die for. I've seen it at pictures at prototype meets. It's wonderful. You can model, electric railroads. That I did find our giveaway tool. So we need a hashtag. What are you going to give away here, William? Are you going to give away
just put
Joe Binish's home phone number, or what are we doing here?
I like that. I like it. Just do hashtag decals. If you do hashtag decals, that just gives us the opportunity. I will send out the size. If you're an N scaler, an S scaler, I do have some S scale stuff. I'll send it out to you. You just basically, if you win this, we'll connect and we'll get some decals out to you. So we've got a handful of them. Let them fly in there so you can get yourself in.
All right.
And I think you've already got that on there. I think a lot of times too, what I was doing is tracing the letters of the M and an S. That was one of the things I'd done a lot of. If you look at the M and an S lettering, so everybody knows, at least you may be familiar with, is that it's a blue hopper. There's one that's on the railroad right now next to that Milwaukee car. Those cars, that large M&S, 14 different styles that the railroad had from about 1968 is when it first appeared in white. Those two look like they're having a pretty good time. But what I'm getting at there is that the decals that I end up creating are 1-to-1 to the actual prototype. So if the S isn't cut quite right, it's going to look like it's not cut quite right, because that's what they did when they cut out those letters.
Yeah. So if it's wrong, it's actually prototype. Prove it. We want you to prove it.
Well, we've got the photos, and in fact, I did some for the Hopper car that they had a 600 series. They only had 6 of them, and out of the 6 cars, 4 of them had the big M backwards. So, and this is numerous shots that I looked at. The stencil just got put on the car backwards, and that's the way they sprayed them. But at the end of the day, I personally think you should decal it with the M backwards. It's not for everybody, but at the end of the day, I think that just gives it that little bit more of a unique element again.
All right, come on now. We only got 17. We got 71 people in here. Everybody.
Well, there's only so many people that are at a keyboard too, though. A lot of these guys are streaming on TV. So they're cursing at the TV right now, being like, "Dang, you giveaway! You're going to do a giveaway, and you're only going to let 17 people get a crack at it."
Yeah, I figured only 17 were sober enough to put that in there.
Well, they're probably only the ones able to type hashtag decals.
All right, here's another quick question.
I do. Ken's looking for a free book. That's actually not a bad idea too.
We got to teach Dwight how to spell, and then he spells like I do. So
did he write decals?
Decals. That's the Canadian term, isn't it?
Canadians, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Is it Cato or Cato? That's our next debate on the podcast. So,
well, now a gentleman that visited, visited the Cato plant. He came back and said it's Cato.
Right, so from
the that's from the plant, and that I can at least go with that word. So I've called it Cato. Then is it it's Pico or Pecco? I call it Pico.
I've never heard Pecco.
Okay, well, I'm glad. So then
that's a good one.
I will tell the guy that called it Pecco that he's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I've also heard, is it cupola or cupola?
Yeah. And what's the plural of caboose? That'll be our next
caboose.
discussion on the crossing. That'll be our next sponsor.
It's
will be on.
Cabeast.
Yeah, if anybody has ideas for a good sponsor, because the next podcast will be out here in a couple weeks, let us know. And if anyone who I should ask a quiz, who can name the sponsor of the last podcast? I should give some away for that. Who wants a?
I think that's a good.
Who wants a split rock ore car? I got split rock ore load. All right, watching TV and chatting on a tablet. Graham, he's down there, down under. Multitasking. Wow, I think we've got like 12 states and 2 countries in here. I haven't seen any Canadians yet. If you're Canadian, raise your hand.
Well, you're not going to be able to
raise
see
your
them,
tube. Yeah, I know.
They're sitting in their living room right now, holding their hand up.
I know, that was my joke. Ixnay on that. I get a kick. These two over here are like fighting like a real crew.
Well, that's
and you know who's in charge too. So
you can barely tell. Let me see the paperwork.
Yeah, look at this. No, that's not what it says.
All we do here is let's hear what they say. They're discussing.
So that's just going to go on our train. So we can put it.
Now the argument wasn't as good as I thought it could be. We had our own conversation here. It's like, well, what do you think we should do here? And he says, I'm not sure exactly. No, now we're listening.
Now we outed them.
They're actually paying attention.
They're paying attention. Oh, there we go.
I'm surprised they're not using the stool.
I'm surprised he hasn't used the poker on him yet. So it's just kind of. All right, should we do our drawing here? Should we just?
Yeah, I think you can fire it away.
Should we fire it away? Everybody's in the decals. Everybody had enough there? Okay, here we go. And coming down to the end. Oh, look at that. Mesquite belt.
All right.
So we need some information from Mesquite belt.
Well, they can email. They want to email me directly, or they want to email to the Twin Cities division to be able to just give us the mailing information. I'll get it sent out.
We can do our email. You can send one here to TCD, if I get this right. TCDNMRA at Gmail. If I can spell me in the decals.
And then scale, because I'll print it and I'll have it in the scale that he's.
Actually, if Ken Zeska's still here, if you're here, Ken, could you post our email up there, and we'll have Mr. Mesquite Belt. We'll find. Yeah, who is Mesquite Belt? There's the question. But congratulations.
Yes, absolutely.
And
he says he's got my email. Go ahead and send me directly.
Okay.
We'll cut out that middleman.
Yeah. And if William doesn't know who it is, everybody email William and say, I'm Mesquite Belt. I'm Spartacus. And these are not the decals with the backwards M. So we're not having that discussion.
No, not this time. I mean, he can request. I'll talk to him once he contacts me. And we'll get it connected.
Yeah, they moved over there. All right. Info at TC. Okay, there. But yeah, Robert, you were so close. You were right there. Anybody have anything else? I want to thank you to everyone here. I wish.
Well, thank you for the entertainment. Yeah. I hope we're able to provide some information, and we'll be back probably in, I don't know, I'm going to say February-ish of 2024 with some videos. The new series that I'm working on is actually referred to, it's going to be called Monkey Nuts. And if anybody knows the M&S, that was their nickname, was Monkey Nuts. So it still will be the Sue the Milwaukee Road YouTube channel, and a lot of the similar humor, but I am shifting gears slightly to focus a little bit more on modeling.
Yeah. So Mesquite Belt must be famous. He has a Home Shops car.
Well, that's even better. Maybe we should have him on, and he can give a car away.
Yeah. Home Shops needs a split rock mining car, probably like one that's broken and loaded on a flat car or something. But here they're asking now for the gripe of the show. I don't know.
Oh, if you want a gripe of the podcast, hang on just a second. If you're gonna do it, I think you got to do it right.
Okay, hang on, guys. Here we go. We'll go back to the. He's using the arrow now. I think he's going to injure his grandpa with that thing.
What I don't have is my, here, hold on, Tom. I'll be right back.
I'm holding on. You tell me when you're ready, and you're going full curmudgeon on us here. Somebody's excited for this. read us from his book next time. I like that. Yeah. You think it's a reading book? I thought it was a coloring book, Dan. That's just kind of. Well, there be. So, well, maybe that's the downfall. Maybe that's why we have M&Ms. The young engineer gripe of the show. All right. Are you ready?
You got it.
Here we go. Gripe of the show.
All right, here's the curmudgeon coming at you for the gripe of the pod. When you got these guys that are running an operating session, I tell you right now, make sure they got name tags on. If they're all named William, well, I tell you right now, they better put their last name on, or they better put something on there that I can identify them senior, junior. I'm telling you right now, when you end up looking at all these operating sessions, you got all these people wandering around, cutting the cheese, stinking up the room, and you're like, who was that? And they go, William. Oh, great. Well, was it me? Was it him? Was it him? Was it him? Was it me? I'm really not sure. But at the end of the day, make sure you know who you are. And that's the curmudgeon's gripe of the pod.
It doesn't get any better than that, folks. It doesn't get any better than that. Again, we want to thank you for everyone. This is one of our most watched shows in live. I appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you join the NMRA if I get the right side there. And if you inspire to, I'll drag you kicking and screaming to become an MMR. Ask the guy over there.
Yeah,
I'm working on that.
He's still dragging me, and I still.
He's still dragging him.
I'm still worth doing.
I'm dragging quite a few people. Mr. Zeska's not here. Mr. Zeska's this close, and a couple other people. Twin Cities is really going well. If you're in our area, we saw our events. You're welcome. We're a social group. We're a fun group. We go at everything. So thank you. And thank you, William.
Yes.
And William.
Thank
and
you,
William.
guys.
And,
They're
and even Mom. Thank Mom for jumping in. There he is. Yeah, get him to wave.
Yeah, can you guys wave or say goodbye? I'll mic them.
Hey.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well done, everyone.
Definitely good. A lot of fun.
One done, everyone. And we'll end here with our little video. Here we go.
Bye.